Good afternoon all. My name's Raj Kapur. I'm from a company called Chancery Waste Holdings. What do? We develop what we call a gasification technology for the destruction of waste and clean energy recovery. Why is it useful? Because heaps of waste transfer operators right throughout the UK and right throughout Europe are being lumbered with huge landfill tax rises and trying to work out a solution as to how to get rid of their rubbish without having to pay the higher tax. What we do is develop the technology for them to combust the waste, and they pay us to take the rubbish off them, and we also get paid to generate the energy recovery. And that's pretty much it.
Okay. You were halfway to a near good picture. Now, there's a couple of issues. I need a volunteer from the audience to tell me what he does. Somebody want to do it for me? Sir. And your name is for the rest, everyone else's benefit? Toby, come on up. Come on up. Borrow Raj's microphone. Raj, give it to Toby. Toby, tell everyone what Raj does in your own words.
Okay.
And did you know ahead of time?
No.
Okay, good.
I literally just heard it.
Because for all I know, you two are brothers. And that was a joke, Raj.
They were good though, huh? They were
Yeah.
good together. Okay, so the business basically takes waste and turns it in, destroys it and makes money out of it. It takes money from a number of ways. One, it takes money from the waste disposal. It takes money from the government, and then it sells what it makes from the waste.
Which is?
Is it combustion or electricity?
You're not allowed to ask him questions. What kind of test would that be?
If he can sell it, again, does it matter?
Possibly not. Thank you, Toby. Let's go back to Raj. All right. Is it completely correct? Yes, and it did deserve a bit of applause for that. Is it completely correct? Do you get money from 3 sources? I understood you got them from 2. That you got it from the people who you're relieving of the obligation to dispose of the waste, who have an obligation to do so, and that you are then making money by combusting the waste and generating energy with it. Is that correct?
That is correct, but I excluded the government grants you can get.
Well, that's okay. He threw them in for good luck, and you didn't even say it.
I take commissions.
He takes commissions.
How much? So, in essence, most of the money comes from 2 sources.
From and presumably one of them is the municipalities, I'm sorry, the local councils who are obliged, or no?
Or waste
or the people who
operators.
Are the waste transfer, mean the garbage men.
Yeah, or municipalities.
Are we allowed to call them that here?
You can call them that.
Okay. I have no idea. People get sensitive. You know, sanitation engineers is what they call them in the States now. Everyone's an engineer now. Right. Are you looking for money?
Yes.
How much?
We're looking for £1.5 million to do a pilot plant.
Ah, I see. Oh, now that's interesting. So, how do I know your customers want what you have, and how do I know you can do it? Which would be more or less the 2 questions I always ask.
Sure. Let me tell you about one of our customers. His name's Don Scott. He's a waste transfer operator in Dorset. Don has a real problem. He's been paying higher and higher landfill taxes to the point where his whole business is at risk. He gets lumbered with a lot of not only household waste, but hospital waste, clinical waste, hazardous waste, animal remains, you name it, he has to get rid of it. And his margins are being squeezed. When he saw this solution, he couldn't wait till we'd actually proved what we were saying we could do, to the point where he'd sign up on the spot. So, how many transfer operators are there like Don Scott in the whole of the UK?
I hope that's a rhetorical question, because I have no idea.
I was going to ask you.
Oh, dear. I'm a non-expert in this area.
Okay.
How many are there, Raj?
For his size?
I feel like we're a bad duo. Yeah. Over to you, Raj.
For his size, there are 250.
What do you mean for his size?
Because
what happens if you were twice as large? Wouldn't there still be 250?
No, because he processes 50,000 tonnes of waste per year.
But how many are there in total in the market? Because it's not just his size that's relevant, is it?
In total, in the UK market, there are just under 500.
And are they all potential customers?
They're all potential customers. Some are larger than the others. But our target market segment are the smaller operators.
Because?
Because our technology, specifically, one of its key benefits is it fits onto smaller local councils, which enable the plants to be built far more quickly, within 9 to 12 months.
Oh, I see.
And if you go for a larger plant, it'll take you 1.5 to 2 years.
Okay, so I got a quick question for you.
Sure.
You ain't built one yet, right?
No, we're looking to build a pilot plant. That's why we seek the
So,
investment.
how do I know it's going to work?
The technology actually has been proven to work by one of our gasification engineers in the field of coal combustion. So it already works in that sphere. The application for waste destruction is a lot less complicated and generates a higher energy recovery ratio as well. So given that we've got 2 of the guys that did it for coal, we're 99% confident that it's going to work for waste, given that it's a much simpler application.
I'd be the first to admit I missed something there, because I was under the impression burning coal to make power was not exactly a complex or new technology. I thought that was just you shove the coal in, you turn it on the heat, and it gets hot, and out comes energy, and it's one of the most dirty forms of energy production in the world.
So how do
obviously, they've done something else.
They've limited the CO2 to 0.
Fine. So that's where so the marginal value is in creating energy without a CO2 emission.
Correct.
And they did it for coal.
Mm-hmm.
And they're on your team.
These are the 2 guys that are on my team. Yeah, they've worked on a coal combustion process previously, have done it successfully, and they're on our team doing it for waste.
Okay. So how do we get this into a sentence, Raj? Because you've got a lot of good elements here. You've got a potentially strong proposition. I can think of 2,000 questions to ask you, but it would be probably larger than the scope of today, right? And you're asking for real money. So you need to have proved pretty much everything, in large part. How's the fundraising process going, by the way?
I've only spoken to friends, family, and fools, basically.
You got friends and family, they got 1.5 million quid hanging out?
That's a lot of friends, family. No,
Or there's some really cool fools out there.
All 3. But we've contacted 6 people, and they've all been extremely positive. The reason we haven't contacted more people at this point in time is because we need to put 2 internal agreements in place, which is probably going to happen in the course of the next 4 weeks.
What's an internal agreement in this instance?
Internal agreement is rights to exclusivity on the technology, structuring the company properly so that the 4 partners...
Oh, whose tech is it now?
Well, there is no technology yet because it hasn't been developed, but the coal combustion technology is widely known. You cannot patent that. Okay. So what we want to do is set up the new corporate entity to develop the waste technology.
Here's where your jump's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
You have expertise. You have something that isn't developed yet. Therefore, by definition, not proved, merely asserted. Am I correct or incorrect?
For waste destruction, that is correct.
Waste destruction is what you want the money for.
Yeah.
You want to take a pile of stuff that would go into a landfill, you want to put it into this thing that's not going to emit any CO2,
mm-hmm.
and that is going to create not just the same quantity of energy as coal would, but more. Isn't that what you said?
That's correct.
Kind of like a miracle.
No, we
Fine,
don't think so.
but not proved.
Not proven at the moment.
That's fine. But you want 1.5 million quid.
Mm-hmm.
Could you prove it for less? Could there be a bench test? Is there any? I got to tell you, you are going to run into this challenge. You are going to pay either you're going to pay a lot of money for that money because it's unproved, or you find a way to create something that is a prototype, a bench test, that proves the concept even if it's not proving scale, because then you're breaking the risk down, aren't you? You can break it down to, we can do it at the bench, we can do it at an engineering level, we can do it in situ, we can do it in theory, but yes, we agree scaling up is a marginal risk, but then it's a much lesser risk, in fairness, to not having done it at all. 1.5 million gets you a done producing plant. How much, is there an intermediary step? I'm only suggesting this because at the end of the day, you'll end up owning more of your company if you find a way to do that.
Yeah, there is one way you can do that, and that is by using one of the customers we've lined up. He's actually got some combustion chambers already on his site. So we could use that to reduce the cost to maybe a little below £1 million in total. But it would not be a proper pilot plant. You'd be pushing in 1 tonne a day of rubbish. A pilot plant would let you put in 4 tonnes a day of rubbish.
Right, and the savings are not so dramatic that you want to spend $1 million on something that then is relatively ineffective.
Well,
is that essentially the assertion?
Yeah. I mean, it could probably come in at sub £1 million, so you might lower the cost by about 40 to 50%. Between 40 and 50%. That's the minimum you could do it for.
You have a very entertaining opportunity. It's entertaining because people will invest in your opportunity based almost solely on a series of CVs. You realize that?
Yep. We've got the CVs.
I'm very comfortable with that. Yes, I'm confident you do. But you're the first time in a long time in the UK I've had a proposition like this to talk about. I see it a lot in California because in California you've got a lot of people who've gone around the mill, they've succeeded in something, they're going back out. Now, you may or may not have prior entrepreneurial success to your credit. That's not the point. The point is you guys are looking for real capital pre-stuff. So it's the credibility of your ability to deliver that functioning thing. Because you're right. If you can only take it from $1.5 million to $1 million, you might as well go for the $1.5 million. I agree.
That's what we thought.
Yeah, no, perfectly logical. If you could do something for a few $100,000 that would get to the point where you would de-risk the assertion rather than the scaling, I would probably vote the other way. But taking you on faith, you can't. And therefore, you're right. You need to go to that plant, a pilot plant. And a pilot plant's £1.5 million. So now the question is, how else can you cheat? I have some thoughts.
Government grant is one way you can get
That's right.
about half of it from a government grant.
And do you think you're eligible for that?
Yeah. It takes a long time to get them.
Have you looked at the TSB contests?
No.
There's another, I'm reasonably confident there's another Technology Strategy Board Clean Energy Contest competition, I shouldn't call it a contest, coming up this spring. I'd go to their site and take a very close look at it because I think you would be very interesting to them. And you've got the kind of chunkiness of money they like. They've got a need to do things that are meaningful. They would only be part of the money, but they could be what we used to call an aggressive follower, where they'd say, yeah, we can only put in $500,000, and if you can find a cooperative university, then they could probably put in a little more, so long as the university got to do a bit of collaboration. And then they'd say, but of course you need the rest of the money, but now you can go to other investors and say, we only need this much money, because they're ready to put in following you, an aggressive follower. And that would cut your money down again.
The other thing we've looked at is the EIS scheme.
Well, I'll talk about EIS, but I can talk about it while you're here. An EIS scheme is simply a tax saving for an individual angel. So yes, you could make yourself EIS, you could conform to EIS structures, and if I'm an angel investor, I want that. All angels do. Well, most angels do, because you get an immediate tax benefit for the EIS structure. But that in and of itself is not a funder. That's simply a mechanism to take funders you already have and increase the likelihood of the attractiveness of it. The other ones you could go to is you could look at the VCTs. You're familiar with them?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're slightly different than many of the people in this room, given the quantum of money. A VCT is a venture capital trust. Venture capital trusts were a creation of the government that are kind of like VCs, except they have to spend their money. No, I'm dead serious. There's times when they have to get the money spent by this day and by this day and by this day. And if you know the periods when they have to spend it by, and so they tend to have been more active in the recent last year or two. You could also take a look at some of the social enterprises that use green as a permissible ticket into the word social enterprise, even though strictly speaking it's not. And you're simply a for-profit activity, which is a lovely thing. I'm not against that at all. I encourage you to be a very successful for-profit thing, but it is another ticket in. Right. Thank you very much. Hopefully that was of value.
Thanks a lot. Very helpful. Thank you.
I keep the mic.